Hello and welcome to the AO Daily Show. I am the Shozen one, and today I am joined by Tommy666 and Bogle for a new player show focused on Hellgates. Today we're going to look at a recent stream that Tommy was on with a brand new player, and it was a stream focused on Hellgates, right, Tommy?
Yeah, so we did a stream just on 5v5 Hellgates. I've long wanted to do a new player show on 5v5 Hellgates, but it's a tricky topic to get into. So I want to spend some time to think about how to discuss with you guys as brand new players that have only been into the game for a short period of time, how to get into the non-lethal 5v5 Hellgates. Because I do think it's content that's accessible for people that haven't been playing the game for very long. And to show that, I had a brand new player come in with us. So he has a brand new perspective on the Albion in general. And I think this was his fourth time playing the game, and we jumped right into non-lethal 5v5 Hellgates.
All right, that sounds like it could be a lot of fun to go over. What did you find was the first thing that you guys had to do to get him prepared to go into Hellgates? Because Hellgates are kind of a different beast. Maybe we should just go over the basics of Hellgates first and what you have to do before you even go out of the city.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to talk about for sure. I would say you do want to have a bit of experience in the game before you jump into the non-lethal Hellgates, but I do think it's something you can do fairly early on. So I think he was on his fourth time playing Albion in general, and I think he did some group dungeons previously. I think he did some 2v2 Hellgates even at one point in time, but he also did some roaming in the mist, and I had him do some corrupted dungeons. So he did have a basis of how to do PvP, and he had done a little bit of PvP here and there. Beyond that, we just kind of jumped in, and I the way I thought of it was it's non-lethal. No one's going to lose anything, so we can go in there, we can die a couple times, and then we can kind of assess what happened and kind of correct things as they went. I don't think there's any reason to overload someone and try to explain, listen, you have to do this and this and this, and when you get in there you have to do this and this and this, and you have to make sure you use this and this. So I gave him very basic explanations of what his gear did. I told him how to use a res pot. I told him basically how to stand and who to look at, and then we just kind of went from there.
I've got an important question for you. How do you use a res pot?
How do you use res pot? Actually, this is something that I've explained to veteran players that have playing for a very long time. The trick to using a res pot, believe it or not, is you press it before you start taking damage. So if people are starting to attack you, or it seems like you're going to take big damage, you have to use the res pot before. Once you've already taken a lot of damage and your health is actually lower, that res pot is effectively useless. The res pot's usage is to stop damage from coming in. It doesn't save you when you've already taken damage.
So you want to use that when you still have like 75, 80% of your health left, and you know that they're continuing to target you, and you want to not go down to 20% or lower.
No, I mean, if you can use it when you're at 100% HP or even better.
100%? That's like predicting the future.
I know, right? Once you get to the point where you can actually see when people are going to use abilities, it's actually even stronger. If you see someone's about to cast something and you can't use your shoes to get out of it or something else, and you can use a res pot, you're actually going to be much better off.
Okay. Do you want to give us a couple of quick examples? Because I know res pots are important for new players. Like, what are the things that they would be able to preemptively res pot for?
The one thing that I think people overlook on res pots is it gives you 90% CC reduction. So that means anytime someone's going to use a stun or something that's going to stop you, popping that res pot before will take out a big chunk of that CC. So for example, if you see a Great Hammer tank running at you and he's about to stun you, if you pop that res pot before, his stun doesn't do much at all. And generally, if a team is coordinated after a tank stuns you, there's going to be damage coming in as well. So you're going to mitigate a lot of damage while removing that CC effect.
And you can even notice that, hey, I've just been CC'd. Now might be a good time to res pot.
Nope. Before.
Too late?
Before.
I'm just saying if you don't even hit it at that time, say you're late on it, right?
Save it for the next time.
For that big splash. No? Okay.
No. Before.
So if you get hit by the snare, it's too late. Just absorb the damage you're gonna get.
Yeah, I mean, you have other defensives in all likelihood. Maybe you have a cleric robe. Maybe you have shoes.
This is too complicated. Now we're predicting the future.
We've gone too far ahead now.
No. Oh gosh. All right, roll this back. Where are we supposed to be here, Tommy?
Okay, we're gonna talk about what you do before you go into a Hellgate. So first of all, we're talking about 5v5 Hellgates today, so you need 5 friends in total. That's you plus 4 others. One thing I would say is the easiest way to get into it is just to find 4 friends, ideally that have some experience, no experience. It doesn't really matter. Maybe they're friends that you've done other content with. Maybe you've been doing group dungeons with them. Maybe they're people in your guild. Maybe they're people in their alliance. Maybe they're people that you meet on the Albion Discord or Reddit or something like that. But you just got to get friends in a group of 5. I see some people sometimes posting like, "Hey, I'd like to do Hellgates. Is there any group that can bring me in?" In all likelihood, you're probably not going to find a group that way. I think it's easier just to find 4 friends that haven't done it before and learn all together.
Okay.
And then once you've got a group of 5 people together, you guys all join into a party. So you add each other to the party, and then you have to decide on the composition of the group and the gear. When I say composition of the group, I mean what every weapon, every person in your group is wearing as a weapon. I would say there's kind of 2 simple ways to think of comps in Hellgates. There's either the standard groups, the regular groups. So those are ones that have the same sort of team setup that you would see in the crystals. So the ones that'll have generally a tank, a melee DPS, 2 ranged DPS, and a healer. Those are the ones that'll work generally front to back. So they'll kind of express their damage on the front line. Once the front line gets lower, they'll push in deeper. The other type of comp is a dive comp, a one-shot / dive comp. In Hellgates, they are very, very, very popular these days. I would say a good percentage of groups are playing the one-shot comps. Some of the compositions of those ones will be things like gloves and realm breakers and different weapons that'll just kind of hit you and not let you do too many things. And when they don't kill you the first time, they just keep trying over and over again and just mash their face into their keyboard until someone's dead. So those are kind of the 2 compositions. I would say if you're learning, and it's like your first time going in there, going in with more of a standard regular comp is going to be a little bit easier to figure out. The dive comps do require some sort of coordination. And if you don't have communication, you have coordination, people aren't working together, it's not as effective.
So when you say like the dive comps just require more coordination and stuff for people, what are you saying is like the easiest way for like new players to get in then? What is the easiest thing to do if they're going to be fighting against dive comps generally? That means they have to know how to use those resistance pots.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's what they're going to be. That's probably what they're going to be learning against those dive comps is how to preemptively prevent damage.
Yep.
What kind of things do you think will help them do that? What kind of comps will be easiest to learn?
I would say not overthinking it. So if you're going in for the first time, make sure you have a healer,
Mhm.
make sure you have a tank, and then just have 3 DPS. Don't overthink it too much. Bring in 3 DPS, a healer, and a tank. Be prepared to lose a couple times. Don't worry too much about losing the first few times. And then once you lose, you can take that experience and you can kind of change how you're playing, maybe change your comp based on it. You can kind of think about how you're getting into things a little bit different just because of you've had those losses. So let's pull up that first video of getting into a Hellgate, if you don't mind, Bogle, and I'll explain to you guys how you actually get into the Hellgate.
Before we
do that,
throw up the video, oh yeah, Bogle. Okay, you want to go ahead and get that?
Yeah. I just want to mention real quick that if you ask questions or if you type away in Twitch chat, you will be automatically entered into a gold giveaway, and we will draw a few gold codes during the show today. So just chat away, and then you'll be automatically entered. Any questions, any messages count. So chat away, and good luck. Now we can go
And-
to your vid.
And definitely ask questions, guys. We do want to answer questions for you. So if you have questions, statements, tips for Hellgates, feel free to share in chat.
Absolutely. I don't have the chat up, but I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm sure Shozen will let me know if anyone has any in there. So now I'd like to explain how to actually get into the Hellgate. It's actually fairly simple. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to the market, and one person has to buy a map. So what you're going to do is search for a 5v5 non-lethal Hellgate map. You can also craft them, but it's actually generally cheaper just to buy them because they drop a whole lot from chests and stuff like that. So you can usually buy one. The non-lethal ones are pretty cheap. I think they were something like 15,000 silver. So it's definitely not something that's going to set you back too far.
Okay.
The way the Hellgate maps work is when you open them, they can spawn up to 3 maps away from where you are. One thing that we discovered very on in the Hellgate maps is that in town, zones count for that. So what you can do is, say you're in a royal city, say you're in Fort Sterling, you can go over to somewhere like the Realm Gate. You can even go upstairs in the Realm Gate and you open the map there, and you can kind of skip some of those zones of walking. The same thing works for the lethal ones. For the people that didn't know this, if you're in Carleon to pop it, for example, going into the lower bank and opening it there will have it spawn only one zone away from Carleon.
We have an
It's a
interesting
little,
question in chat that is a very a sidestep into another direction, but I think it's relevant for Hellgates as well. They want to know when is the right time to step into lethal zones like red zones and black zones, and I think that can be kind of like discussed here with the Hellgates too. It's when you feel confident enough in that style of content and you have enough money to start losing gear because it's going to happen. If you go into the red zone and black zones, you will at times lose your set. But if you can buy enough 4.1 or 5.1 that it's not going to matter to you while you're out there gathering, or if you're out there doing more high tier stuff, you'll want to have like better gear for that, but it's when you can afford to lose that tier of gear for the content that you're trying to do. If you just want to gather, we have some new player shows on doing that in 4.1. I think just last week we did one.
yeah, I'm actually a big believer in just jumping into the deep end. So in terms of getting into the red zone, the black zone, anywhere that you can actually die, obviously you want to get enough silver that you can wear gear that you're not afraid of losing. But generally, you don't have to bring too big a gear. So if you have amassed, say, 1,000,000 silver in the game, which is quite a lot for a new player, that million silver could buy you, say, 34.1 sets. And if you take those into the black zone, you know, they have a good chance of actually making money as opposed to losing money in the process.
Actually, that was, I believe, Levy, who's in chat right now and asking another question that's about this situation. So, Levy was here a couple of weeks ago with a show on new player content, and you can check that out. And he's asking, what kind of team comp would you recommend for a new player in fives? And I think what you said is that comp isn't important until you just learn how to defend yourself, right? Is that what I was hearing?
Yeah, essentially, I think since I'm trying to focus on the non-lethal side today, I do believe if you bring in 3 DPS, a healer, and a tank, and you kind of focus on what you're doing as a group, you can beat most other comps. I don't think you have to worry too much about the composition for the non-lethals. I don't think you have to overthink it. I think there's a lot of comps that you can play, and a lot of comps that are better or worse than others. And once you move into the lethal, and once you start getting better, and you start worrying about trying to make the most silver you can and get higher infamy and all this sort of stuff, you can focus on that. But if you're new players just trying to get in non-lethal, I would just say make sure you have 3 DPS, a healer, and a tank. Beyond that, you can start refining what you want each group to play. Say you're realizing that you're not getting enough damage out, you might switch out one of your melee DPS to something like a range DPS that expresses a little bit more damage. Maybe switch out your plate to a cloth, something like that. But you can kind of shift things as it goes based on what you think your group needs.
So early on, don't like just jam yourself into the meta and force people to play a specific way. Build around the skills of those new players and what they already have, and let them adapt to what they see they need to do more organically.
Yeah, with the purpose of what I'm trying to say today is that I'd like people to feel comfortable getting into non-lethal Hellgates around the same time that they're getting into group dungeons. So very early on in the game, when maybe they only have spec in one weapon, you know, maybe they've only been playing crossbows so far. You can still bring in, I'd say at least 3 of the crossbows still work pretty good in Hellgates. So bring in a crossbow with you because that's the only thing you've played so far. Once you get to the point where you've got spec in a few different weapons, you've got a little bit more experience in PvP, you can start refining the comp and figure something out. But I really think that getting into non-lethal Hellgates at the same point that you're doing, say, group dungeons, that you're very early on in the game, maybe you've got your first guild, I think that's totally fine to do.
Yeah, that I believe was one of the recommendations early in the chat today was for new players. One of the most important things to do so that you can do group content like this and find the friends who you can join for this kind of content is to join a guild of like-minded players who seem to be helpful and friendly, who will want to do this kind of content with you. So you have either people to learn with who are all on the same kind of interest level as you, or you have people who are already interested in bringing in new players into that kind of content, so they'll want to teach you.
Yeah, I think a guild is a great source initially to start building up your group of friends, especially for something like this. You do need people to play with, and I don't think it's super easy to find groups that are willing to just bring in a new player. So finding 4 other friends in your guild, other people that have nothing else to do, or maybe they want to try something new, bring them together and just kind of learning together. Like I said, I do think this is content that is very accessible. I think new players can be doing this. I think, once you've gone into the game for a week or two, you can absolutely be doing non-lethal Hellgates. And I think the earlier you do it, the better chance you have of getting better at PvP. You can get pretty good rewards in here. I think the fame is on par with doing group dungeons, and you get some silver from chests and all that sort of stuff. I don't think you're losing anything by doing non-lethal Hellgates as opposed to, say, a group dungeon or anything like that.
Hmm. We had some people asking what the best way to make money in Albion was, and I said that was very dependent on your experience and your skill level, because the best way, of course, is to win the CLC, which is our Crystal League Championship, our 5v5 tournament at the end of the season, which literally has billions of silver on the line. But short of that, it really is dependent on what kind of risk you're willing to take, what kind of skill level you have at different aspects of the game, and how you want to approach it, and what best means to you.
Yeah, I get that question pretty often. I stream every day, so I do often get new players that ask the best way to make silver. And my answer is always that you get good at something. Find something you like doing in the game. Once you get good at it, you'll make silver doing it. So that could be ganking, that could be Hellgates, that could be crystals, that could be crafting, that could be gathering. Anything you like and you get good at doing, you can actually make silver doing. That's one of the best parts of a sandbox game.
Yeah, there's no real best way to do it, but for the hood spot, yeah, you got to be pretty good to enter the CLC. But we did have some teams get pretty far in the CLC this season from the non-lethal side of the of the Crystal League. So the current Crystal League Championship takes 5 teams from the lethal and 3 from the non-lethal, and it pairs them up against each other, and the winners take all in a double elimination tournament. You can check out the last one. It is available in our VODs as well as on YouTube. But yeah, you have to be pretty good at that. But you can get in. I think we had a team that started in the Crystal arena, and they were iron in Crystal Arena, which means they were just starting out at the beginning of the season, but they ended the season in the CLC. So within, I think it's less than 4 months, they got good enough to participate in the tournament. So you can do it too if you try to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first thing is you got to get out there and try. Once you get out there and you try and you lose a few times, you'll get better and you'll kind of improve over time. So now that we're in the Hellgate, let's hop over to the PvE in Hellgate portion. So Hellgates are set up where there are packs of mobs in them, and you spend the first little bit just clearing the mobs, not actually fighting people right off the bat. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 Hellgates before you actually get an opponent. The reason for that is there is basically an infamy / MMR system, and if you're a brand new player in there and other people have been playing in there and there isn't a brand new team, they try to match you up with closer teams to your level. So essentially, the first couple times, you'll usually just be killing the mobs. But I think it's a good time to practice your abilities. So discuss who your team is going to attack, discuss how you guys are going to play, discuss how you guys are going to position. Those mobs are a great little test for how to use your abilities and kind of positions that you're not dying. Because if you're dying to the mobs, that's not going to be a good sign when you actually start fighting people.
Yeah. I do have some early memories of the very early Hellgate mobs that just kind of wrecked you. It was like as difficult as the 10v10 Hellgate mobs now, maybe more so. It was rough. Yeah, you got to get to the point where you can beat the mobs first, right, guys?
Yeah, and if you don't pay attention, these mobs will knock you down. The newer Hellgates, well, I shouldn't say newer anymore. They've been around for a while now. But the current level Hellgates, the mobs are a little bit tricky. If you're not using your healer, you're not paying attention, you'll go down to mobs pretty often. So what you want to do at this point in time is you want to walk around and you start killing the mobs. There's two other things that you want to look for. There's a shrine. The shrine will usually be in the south area. So position yourself towards the south of the map and locate this shrine. It'll usually have a group of mobs around it, some slightly bigger mobs than the other ones. Once you kill them, you can actually take the shrine and it'll give you a big fame bonus. I think the fame bonus is for 4 minutes, and any fame that you get is increased during that time. So if you're in there to try to get your gear higher score and you're trying to get more fame and all that sort of stuff, getting the shrine every time is a big bonus.
Hey, we're going to see another engagement here by you and your team here. What is? Oh, we see the opponent doing what I was going to say. Is you want to go in first with the tank,
Are
set
we
up
on
some
the?
CC.
We
Oh,
might
I'm
be on the
watching
wrong
this.
video.
Oh, I'm watching what Bogle's watching.
I'm
Uh-oh.
actually
Oh, you're just scouting around and
I'm actually in the game right now. I'm actually hopping around in real Hellgates that are
Yeah.
happening right now. So that's something that's going on because it fit nicely. They were doing
No, it does. I was
something
just very confused. I thought we were watching the video for a second, and I was like, "So, Tommy, this is
no, because
let's
we would
let's
be
talk-
all over the place, and you guys went into a different tangent. These guys are fighting already, but the video I have is also in the middle of some fighting that started immediately with the video. Maybe if you want to send me,
we should be on the second segment there.
all
On the
right,
second timer there.
let's finish this fight, and then I'll hop over to the other segment, and I'll just play it in the
No
background.
worries. No worries.
All right, okay.
Sorry there, Tommy. We're being a little
It's all good.
hopping around the world here. Answering questions, watching
No worries.
Hellgates.
No worries.
But I think we're teaching the audience a good bit. We have a lot of new players in chat today. A lot of them have been talking and answering questions or asking questions, talking with each other, trying to get guilds. I think that's something that you mentioned earlier, how important it is to find those people to play with. Do you know of any quick resources where people can find guilds to join? Because I believe there's a guild finder now, right?
There is a guild finder, and now you can select different activities that you like to do when searching for a guild. It's a lot more handy than it used to be. So I would say that's a good source. Beyond that, you can always use the Albion Reddit. The official Albion Discord often has guilds advertising in there. And a lot of times I do see guilds mention like, hey, we do Hellgates. So I imagine, joining one of those guilds and trying to find a group to make a Hellgate group with is a good idea. Albion is a social game. You can certainly play Albion as a solo player, but getting into a group, getting into a guild and playing with friends opens the door to so many different kinds of content. Albion, at the end of the day, has tons and tons of different stuff that you can do, but you are pretty limited if you're just playing by yourself. If you make a group of friends to play with, you have a lot more cool things to do.
Absolutely. And there's some pretty good discords out there for particular kinds of content that you could be interested in. So if you like Hellgates, there's a Hellgate Discord that's specifically for Hellgates. There's plenty of faction warfare discords, I should say. I think each city has at least one. Some cities with many that feud amongst themselves, and so much drama. I do recommend watching that sometime. But every different aspect of Albion, I believe, has its own Discord that you can join. So there's communities with inside communities inside communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And once you spend a lot of time, playing the game, you'll meet people just through playing as well. I would say at this point in time, most of the friends that I've made have been people that I've just met through playing Hellgates. So you get a couple friends. I think the first few friends that I had were met through a Discord. And then as we fought other teams, we met those guys. And as we needed new people to play with, maybe we invited some of those guys to play. And eventually your circle of friends just continues to get bigger and bigger. So playing Hellgates is actually a great way to make friends. I never have free slots in my friends list. I'm always leading people that haven't been on in 3 or 4 days, and those are all just people I've played with before in other different kinds of either Hellgates and crystals and stuff like that. So it's a great way to make friends and find people to play with just by playing the game.
Well, I think that's a good point to make here. Oh, I tried to rewind the stream by like 10 seconds and it decided, you went back 10 seconds. You know what you need? 3 more commercials. It'll be good enough, guys. You guys just play Tommy's stream, and I'll be there when I catch up.
It's okay. We don't have to worry too much about where we are in the video.
At least, we're getting people some ad revenue here. We're helping out.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of last things I want to talk about the PvE portion in Hellgates. There's also boss camps that you can find. They're going to be marked on the map. If you kill the bosses, you get a little bit more fame, and you also get a chest out of it. There's also a chest at the end of the Hellgate. So you'll notice on the right side, it says 0 out of 100, and then that number goes up as you kill the mobs. Basically, you're slowly getting infamy just from killing the mobs. Once that hits up to 100, a chest will spawn and you can go on to the next one. So once that number hits 100, you're going to walk towards the north part of the map and you'll find a chest there, and then there'll be a gate for you to get into the next one. If you click on it, you can channel and go right over to the next one.
Thanks, Bogle.
Try to follow along with where Bogle is. I'm also lost, but that's okay. I think it's time to move on to the PvP portion.
Yeah,
we can start getting into it.
Yeah, I was going to talk about, because we were just looking at different types of engagements and what you're trying to do during an engagement and how you want to engage the enemy. And I think we need to go to the most basic elements of how to engage the enemy if we're talking about how to really begin in 5v5s. You kind of want to start with some CC from your tank. Get them where you want.
Sure.
And nail them down, and then proceed from there. Once you have a little bit of control, it makes targeting and everything else so much easier.
Yeah, so let's talk about PvP now. So
okay.
I would say this is the a frustrating Bogle by
we are way for fuck's I am definitely looking at a different section of than where you want to be. Okay.
I had timestamps, guys. I put them in the
we're on the timestamps. We're on the next timestamp. Okay, we're getting ready to go into the Hellgate. I am paused, and there are people at a Hellgate.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, they're zoning in 3:23:25-ish, right?
Yeah.
Yep, that's it.
They're going in right now.
Oh my god.
Perfect.
All right.
We've done this before. I'm sure of it.
We've watched this part as well as already. So
yeah, we've watched this one, and I've watched these ads before too.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to try to commentate on what's happening in the fight because I think it'll be too confusing to try to sync it up. So I'll just kind of talk basics on what you're looking for in the fight, and how to go about it and how to actually do the PvP portion. Shozen was talking about stuns and CC from the tank. I actually want to take a little bit of a step back first.
Even farther back, yes.
Even further back, yeah. So before you actually start engaging with your opponent, figure out what they are. So ideally, you'll have your tank kind of walk a little bit ahead of where you guys are, at a place where they're still safe. They're not going to get killed or anything like that. Go real slow and check out what the opponents are wearing. Take the time to inspect. If you're not already using the inspect tool in the game, make sure you have it set to a key that's really easy to use, and inspect what the opponents are wearing. Because if you take the time to say, hey, these are 5 longbows here, it'll let your team prepare how they're going to fight. Or you can say, hey, this is a dive comp. They have this, this, and this. Then your people know when to use their defensives. We were talking about that res pot usage. If you know it's a dive comp, you're going to want to have your finger right on that res pot for when you see them coming in. Because if you press it too late, you're probably already dead. You got to press it before. So knowing that they're a dive comp and they might be jumping right on your head, and pressing it before is really essential. After you figured out what they are and your team knows what they're playing and all that sort of stuff, that's when you're going to start to position. I would say the general position that you're going to have would be the healer is positioned pretty much as far back as he possibly can. The healer should be at a point where they can still heal your team, but not at a point where they're going to take unnecessary damage. In front of them, very slightly, will be your range DPS. I would probably try to make sure that one is on one side and one is on the other. The reason for that is that you don't want to clump up and take AoE damage on multiple people if you don't have to. So spreading out and having the range DPS on opposite sides is a really good way to do that. And then in front of them, the tank and the melee DPS. Again, they don't want to clump up. They want to be spread out a little bit, to the point where they're not going to take damage from the same opponent for no reason. So with that, you guys are positioned at the right spot. You know what you're fighting, and now you can actually start to fight. So I would say who to target is probably going to be the first thing that you think about.
Okay.
The most basic way of thinking about that, if you're playing a regular comp, would be that your ranged DPS are going to shoot their front line, so their melee and their tanks, and your melee DPS is going to go and start hitting their back line. And then at a point when it starts to seem as though either their front line's getting low, you'll converge on that target. If their back line starts getting low, then you'll push up and converge on that target. Basically, you don't have to be putting damage on the exact same people initially. You want to wait until someone gets a little bit low and then converge on that person.
Mr. GeoHot wants to know, will he drop his items if he dies in Hellgate?
In the lethal versions, yes, absolutely. Today, I'm talking mostly about the non-lethal versions, where you won't actually lose your gear. You'll just get knocked down. You won't lose anything other than, some repair costs.
And so it's mostly a learning situation here where you go into the yellows and you learn how to play in 5v5s under basically single death rules. Now, we often see in yellows when we watch them that people will get up in the middle of a fight because you are knocked down. You're not eliminated, you're knocked down, and people will resurrect, they will or revive, and they will actually get up over time too, because people have some very long, very strange compositions in Hellgates that are definitely about long-term survival, so sometimes they forget to kill people. But
Yeah,
it's in the yellows. It's not full loot, and you can learn. That's why we're not as concerned about your comp here. More about what you can do to just improve the way you play the game.
Yeah, because I really think the big barrier that a lot of people have in getting into things like Hellgates is where to start. You know, they start thinking, you know, if my set is worth 1 million and every time I die, I lose 1 million silver, and I might die 10 times before I actually get a win. You know, that's a big barrier. But I think if you go into the non-lethal version and you learn how the fighting works and you get an idea of how to work as a group and how to use your composition and all that sort of stuff, it's safe, and you'll actually make pretty good fame. You'll make pretty good silver. I really do think it's comparable to doing, like, say, group dungeons or something else like that you might spend your time on. It's definitely better than solo dungeons. I can say that without a doubt. If you're spending your time right now grinding 6 hours of solo dungeons, you will make more fame doing non-lethal 5 gates.
Mm-hmm. Very quickly, you will.
And in a more fun way as well. So in a way where you're, you know, engaging with people, you're probably going to be in like a Discord call talking and discussing strategy, and you know, you'll have downtime where you can talk about, you know, whatever else you want to talk about, and you'll also get better at the game. You know,
Yeah, that is a key important thing right there, Tommy, is that when you're doing those solo dungeons, getting better at PvE and Albion is only going to take you so far. But if you are getting better fame doing the PvE/PvP part of the game and spending some time doing PvP in a non-lethal way, but under like a high pressure situation like Hellgates, you will improve an aspect of your game that can lead to much greater rewards through other areas, such as the lethal fives in Hellgates, or tens, which are ridiculous, or even the Crystal League, which has very significant rewards as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think because Albion is a true sandbox game, a lot of people struggle with the progression. So where do I start? Where do I go? What do I do after I do this? And I think a lot of players in Albion unfortunately get lost very early in that progression. I hear time and time again, players start, you know, playing Albion. They enjoy, you know, doing some gathering in the yellow zone. They do some solo dungeons, and that's kind of where they hit a roadblock. They don't know what the next thing to do is. So my examples of progression from there would be non-lethal content. You can do non-lethal corrupteds. You can do non-lethal Hellgates. And then you can also do things like going into the black zone to fame farm, but finding out the progression from you know, gathering the yellow zone and doing solo dungeons and going on to the next step, I think is really important for actually having a lot of fun in Albion.
Yeah, the progression is one of the trickiest parts of Albion. There is no guide telling you what to do. And if you need a guide, the best guide, other players who've already taken those steps, other players who've already progressed in the game. There are some incredible content creators here on Twitch that are very willing to hang out with you and answer your questions while they're in stream. I know some of them do Hellgate, most of them do some corrupted dungeons. A lot of PvP is done on Twitch, so you can definitely ask some questions as you advance up through your PvP skills. But the best way is to just find other people who PvP and PvP with them. Use the groups that are available and make some relationships.
Yeah, and I do want to reiterate something I think I've already said a couple times, but don't try to stress on finding a group that'll teach you. Find a group that's willing to play with you and
Right.
learn
Yep.
together. Go out there, and if you're all brand new players, it's going to be so much easier. No one's going to flame you. No one's going to get angry when you do something wrong because you guys are all on the exact same page. And then you can just learn together. It's
And it'll
non-lethal, so the only thing you could possibly waste is your time.
And you'll build those relationships too from the learning process, because whereas if you're playing with veterans, probably they, like you said, they will get stressed out that you're not helping them win. Um, but if you play with people who are also learning, those 3 losses that you had before your 1 win are going to make that 1 win so significant and awesome that it's worth doing with those individuals, because you're all experiencing the same thing, that victory after some very difficult times. Where if you're playing with veterans, they'll just be like, yeah, we should have been doing this the whole time, guy. Come on.
Yeah, I think I think at this point, because Albion has been around for quite a while and Hellgates have been around for quite a while, I don't think it's a great thing to get a new player and try to just jump into Hellgates with a group that's already been playing. I feel like the skill gap is too wide. It could be a frustrating experience. If you have experience in other content in Albion, other PvP content stuff, say you've been doing corrupted dungeons for a year and you've already got 20 million corrupted infamy, maybe it'll make sense. But if you're actually a new player and you're trying to jump into a group that's already been doing Hellgates for, some of us have been playing Hellgates for like 3 years straight. Jumping in there and trying to figure it out at the same point is going to be frustrating. So I think just finding a group of friends that are on the same level and learning together is just going to be so much more enjoyable for everyone.
Yeah. And the best ways to do that are to find an existing guild that does accept new players and try to meet the other players who are new inside that guild. And I know it can always feel very daunting to say, I want to introduce myself to a large group of players, but Albion has made some improvements to the tools that are available for you to do that. You can now use the guild finder to say specifically what you're looking for a guild. And Reddit always has a few guilds that are out there actively advertising that they accept new players and are looking for people like you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also say be willing to be the one that starts the group. If you're sitting around all day doing nothing, hoping someone will start a group and invite you to content, you probably won't have as much stuff to do. But if you say like, hey, I watched a new player show and I know how to get into non-lethal Hellgates, who wants to come with me? I think you'll probably have people jump on the opportunity. I found that out very early in Albion, that if I just sat around waiting for someone else to make the content, it doesn't happen as often. But if you're willing to actually make the group and invite people and, spend, 5 minutes organizing people, it happens pretty quickly. A lot of people are scared of making groups and starting, different kinds of content. But if you're willing to actually invite people and say, write something in your guild chat, write something in your guild Discord, whatever it might be, you'll get people to jump on the opportunity.
Yeah, everybody's always waiting for somebody else to make content. So if you start some content, you're going to get people to join. Sometimes it's enough to do the content you want to do, sometimes it's not. But if you take the opportunity, you'll develop a reputation in your guild as somebody who's trying to start content, and then more people will follow you. It happens pretty quick. I've done it a number of times in a number of different games, and Tommy's absolutely right. It's very hard to, as they say, pick up the phone and make the phone call, send out the bat signal, but you can, and those people do become very key to the guild. You become the content creators, and content creators are really what drives guilds to be successful. And you do get more than just a group of people to play with their Soul of the Skeleton, but it's hard to quantify beyond that. You do get some rewards. You do get access to things that you wouldn't get without a guild, such as hideouts or HQs or territories. There's a lot of higher tier content that you just won't get into without a guild or other people. But you can progress in Albion solo, but you're limited. There's a lot of content you really can't do without a group. It is a massively multiplayer online game, and we have groups of over 300 people going together into the black zones to declare war on other groups. So there's no limit to the number of people you can play with.
Yeah, but the good thing is that you will make friends through this content as well. Like I said, most of the friends that I've made have been people that I played Hellgates with. The Hellgate community is pretty friendly, especially when you get up to the higher levels of it and you're someone that's out there all the time. People aren't generally messaging mean stuff. For the most part, they're nice. They say GG after a win or a loss. It's fairly nice. And I think a part of that is because the community isn't huge. The amount of people that regularly do Hellgates isn't a giant group. So they're friendly because, those are people that they probably want to play with next week.
That's true. Yeah, there's not as much bad manners as there are in some other games when you boil it down to the Hellgates. You see a little bit,
Yeah,
but it's
a
not
little bit,
just,
but
yeah.
it's not that bad. Especially like I would say 5v5 Hellgates compared to say Corrupteds, it's night and day in terms of the attitudes that you'll get from your opponents. And it's a good thing. Like I said, the amount of people that I've met that I was playing against, and we ended up becoming friends, or I was playing with, or whatever it might be. That's just a great place to meet groups and make friends. And then, once you have more friends that you play with, it's easier to organize those groups and you don't have to stress over finding 5 people to play with every time. You can kind of go from there. I would say if you talk to people that play Hellgates, if you go to like Shozen said, if you go to the streams or if you find people that are doing Hellgates in general, most people will be really willing to help you on how to get in there, any questions you have, any tips you need, all that sort of stuff. And the reason for that is that the biggest complaint that I think most Hellgate players will have is that there isn't enough people playing Hellgates. So we're all willing to
100%.
help because we want to get more people in there, so we have more people to play with, more people to play against, more variety of opponents, all that sort of stuff.
You make a really good point there. I think everybody is trying to get other people in to play the content that they enjoy, and nobody really wants to push people out with, salt. You do see some salt, but it generally doesn't seem to last too long. We even see some good manners inside of Hellgates when somebody is disconnected. Sometimes, I would say about 50% of the time, people will just wait for the other guy to try to reconnect because it happens. And a lot of these guys play together, so they know the guy who's disconnecting.
Yeah, I've had that happen countless times where someone disconnects and the other group is willing to wait and then have a fair fight because at the end of the day, like I said, there isn't enough people doing this content. It's really fun, it's really rewarding, but there just isn't enough people out here. So no one wants to be the one that makes a group stop playing because that just means you won't have people to fight afterwards. Generally, after you've been playing for say an hour or so in the lethals, the teams start dwindling down. Some teams stop playing. If a team has lost a couple times, maybe they don't want to keep going on. But the teams that are still playing will be messaging like, "Hey, are you guys regearing, coming back?" Like, "Hey," or they'll just say like, "Hey, we'll be back in 3 minutes. We're going to grab a snack or something like that," so that people don't leave the Hellgate and keep going. But all we really want is more people out here playing the content. It's really fun. It's really enjoyable. If we get more people in here, everyone's going to be better off. And it is something you can get better doing. If you spend a bit of time doing it, whether it's in the non-lethal or progressing up to the lethal, you spend your time out here, you'll get better. You'll start winning more. I don't think we're at the same part of the VOD here, but we just watched this brand new player get 2 kills in a row on my screen, and he has only been playing the game for like 4 days, and he got 2 kills in a row.
Well, on Bogle's screen, I believe he's actually watching some matches that were happening live. He didn't stick to the VOD.
Yeah, you guys started drifting on random topics. I was like, I'm gonna find something that's actually action instead. These guys have been.
Are we too boring for you today, Bogle? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, he's like, I'm not paying attention to this.
And
like
they have been setting up this
God.
doorway thing for like 5 minutes. So I was like, I'm gonna find some real matches.
Well, he did just beat 2 people, and he had just gotten a big chest, so he's got a lot of stuff. He's got to, return. He's got to go back. He's got to figure out what he's going to do with all this gear. He just won. He's got something to do. Got to figure it out. But we've got a lot of content coming up in the rest of the day, so I do want to get to Tommy. Do you have anything else important you want to say about the 5v5s and getting involved? Because Bogle is right. Maybe we drifted a little bit. We are down to 15 minutes until the next show, and we have to actually leave a little bit early today so we can set up and switch over to a different producer.
Yeah, of course. Totally understandable. Yeah, just some quick notes that I would say. First of all, 5v5 Hellgates are a lot of fun. The non-lethal ones are very safe. You're not risking anything other than your time. Get a group of friends, get out there, give it a go. Even if it's not your favorite thing to do in the game, try it out. It might be. it really might be your favorite thing in the game. But if not, it could be just something that you do occasionally. It might be something that you want to try out and just give it a go. That's all I have to say. I'm not trying to convince anyone to do Hellgates or trying to tell you that this is the best way to make silver or anything, or this is the best way to spend your time. But I think it's a lot of fun. Personally, it's my favorite thing in the game. Give it a try, see if it's something that you like.
I agree. There's a lot of content out there, and you should try it a couple of times. And the great thing about Albion is that it has taken a lot of the lethal content that was there in Albion from the beginning and made it more approachable, made yellow versions of things. So whether it's ZVZs with faction warfare, where it's 5v5s in Hellgates or the Crystal League, you can absolutely get into some low stakes PvP, even the corrupted dungeons and the mist with 1v1 content out there. There's a way to get involved in PvP in Albion without putting everything in the line, so you can learn what you need to do to be successful in that type of content. And 5v5 PvP in Albion is some of the best PvP in any MMO period. Just ask the people who give out awards. They said so. Albion best PvP. That's the way it is.
Exactly.
Uh, If you like Hellgates, on Saturdays at 19 UTC, we generally do have a Hellgate show. We will be off for the next 2 Saturdays in a row because of the holidays. But when we come back, we will have the Hellgate show at 19 UTC on Saturdays. I do suggest you guys check it out. We do that with Lupac. And tonight after the show, we're going to take a very short break. The stream is going to go offline. But at the top of the hour, if you hit refresh, or maybe 2 minutes after the top of the hour, depending on how things go with the handoff, we will have a Crystal League show where we'll be doing Crystal Arenas, where Bogle, myself, and Tazik will be going into the Crystal Arenas for the first time and teaching people how to improve their Crystal Arena experience from a newer player perspective. Because Bogle and I mean, Bogle, you ever done a Crystal Arena? Shake your head no, even if it's not true. Just do it. Just say no.
I had never left the city. I don't even know what PvP is. Other
Bogle,
than
this happens inside the city. You don't even have to leave.
right. What are you? I just
We're
buy
going
stuff.
to Fort Sterling, boys. We're
Mhm.
gonna be there. See you guys in a few minutes. We'll be giving out gold codes. Bogle's going to drop some music in the background while we try to uh, get things coordinated for the handoff. Sorry, we have to leave a little bit earlier today. This is our first handoff to Tazlik in a while, so we got to make sure everything goes smooth. So thank you guys for watching. Don't worry, when we come back, there will be extra gold codes for waiting, but we'll be here. Thank you guys for watching. See you soon. Here's the basics. From here, you can
All right, guys, we'll restart the stream real quick. We'll swap over, refresh the stream in just a second when it goes down, and then we should be right back in just a little bit.